Hi there, it's Dan here from Flexxable, and today we're going to talk about common mistakes people make when setting up their Facebook ads targeting. Let's dive in. You know, I've been around the block a little while with performance-based marketing and lead gen, and I've seen a lot of people come into my community and ask questions and come to our calls and join our masterminds and all that type of stuff. I see common mistakes made, right? Recently, the biggest mistake is that we think that everyone that we're advertising to is going to be interested in our offer, or we try and advertise really kind of broadly. And yeah, that works, and big broad targeting and stuff like that has worked. For us, where we've generated a ton of leads, but then the issue with that is that there's been quality issues on the back, right? On the back of that. So I'm going to run through what kind of works for us and what you can try moving forward and common mistakes that people make. And the first one is trying to advertise to people who are interested in what you have. I know I'm repeating myself here, but we have this thing in our agency and in our community called the 60-30-10 rule. Okay, so 60% of your success in your lead gen campaigns comes down to who you're advertising to. If you're working with a solar client, for example, that takes leads on a national basis, they're going to be able to tell you exactly the postcodes where their people are most likely to convert into sales, the more affluent living areas, the places where people own detached houses and are more likely to be able to spend for that type of product like solar or roofing or whatever that is. They're going to be able to tell you, and all you have to do is ask them, okay? And I see people make this big mistake all the time. They'll start a new campaign and advertise to the whole of the UK and just hit go. And they're wondering why leads are coming in from places that just can't afford solar because they're using a hook like government rebates and stuff like that. It just doesn't make any sense. Before you kind of get going on any campaign, make sure that you target the right people. All you have to do is have a conversation with a client, and you'll kind of set yourself up pretty well for that, okay? And you'll be able to get going with a good chance of success from the get-go. The other 30% comes down to what your offer is, okay? If you write an ad that says the first 10 people that complete this form win a free holiday to the Maldives, you're going to get 10 people putting their details in pretty quickly if they trust you, right? My point is that our offer is very strong, okay? So if you get your audience right and you get your offer right and make an irresistible offer, most of the job's done, okay? And then you can talk about your copy and your creative and your ad, which is super important as well if you're running, you know, front-facing campaigns on Facebook or whatever, right? Your copy and creative needs to be really good. But if you don't fix these two things to start off with, then you're going to be in trouble. So today I'm going to talk about some common mistakes made in that 60%, in that kind of targeting area, and hopefully you can use these and get started and supercharge your campaigns and your profitability as a business, and keep your clients happy and all that kind of good stuff. The first tip is not advertising to enough people and going too narrow for your budget. So let's say you speak to that solar company and they give you 15 different postcodes in your country that only have 200,000 people there or whatever it is, and you want to be generating 50 leads a day. The problem is that the audience is just too small, okay? Because if you're running quite a big budget to that audience and to those postcodes, the frequency of your ads are going to be shown very quickly to those 200,000 people. And then there's going to be all sorts of kind of ad fatigue, and it's going to force you to be able to just do more creative after more creative, switch up the offers, spin the offers, try different demographics or age brackets or whatever that looks like. But the reality is, if you don't have a big enough audience to advertise to and you're trying to spend too much, the frequency goes up, your campaigns die, your cost per lead gets too high, and things don't become profitable for either yourself or the company that's buying the leads from you. So a good rule of thumb, if you're concerned that your advertising budget is too big for your audience, is to use $1 per 1,000 people. It's just a nice general rule of thumb. Obviously it changes, but let's say you've got 200,000 people. That means you can generally spend around $200 per day without fatiguing stuff out too much. If you've got 100,000, it's 100 per day. If you've got 50,000, it's $50 per day. I hope that makes sense. Another general rule of thumb that we like to use when defining how much budget we can spend or what we want to kind of get started with is around a 500 to $1 million people-sized audience, so we can kind of really start spending and pushing that budget, right? So 500,000 is equal to $500 a day. $1 million, you can spend up to $1,000 per day on ad spend. All right, and it's a general rule of thumb that has worked pretty well for us and also people inside my community. I hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the next tip. Okay, so the second mistake I see people make is when they're using their custom audiences or when they're creating their custom audiences. They're not building their customer audiences with really accurate data, okay? And the reason behind that is because everything that kind of went on with the iOS issues, it's forced people now to make sure they set up Facebook CAPI to be able to gather all of that data from the custom audiences that are being built, right? So if they haven't got that set up, then Facebook's kind of guessing, and the audiences are built relatively loosely as opposed to based on real data, which is a big mistake, right? Because back 5 years ago, the best audiences that would work for anyone were always in most cases, the lookalike audiences, right? Because when Facebook would get 1,000 leads for a particular campaign, you could feed those 1,000 leads back into a custom audience, and you could create a lookalike based on the 1,000 leads, and then you could run ads to people that were like the leads that were generated, and it works super well. Lookalikes were just a fantastic tool to get great quality and really cheap leads. But with everything that's gone on, it's now really critical to make sure you have Facebook CAPI up before you're creating your custom audiences and creating your lookalikes from those audiences. So how to set up Facebook CAPI, it's obviously not something that I want to go into here, but we have got a video which explains how to set up Facebook CAPI for High Level, which is the tool that a lot of the lead gens in my community use. And if you are struggling, then that video, that resource there is going to set you straight. Okay, there's also a few others for other kind of platforms like High Level inside my YouTube channel, and I'm sure you can search for them and find them. All right, let's move on to our next mistake that people make. Okay, the next mistake people make, and a lot of people make, is using lookalikes too early. And I touched on this in my previous point, but there's different types of lookalikes you can create. Okay, you can create one, based on engagement. You can create one based on clicks to a website or clicks on a lead ad or whatever that is. And you can also create one based on leads. Okay, and obviously if you're generating leads, then it makes sense to create a lookalike based on leads to get more leads. All right. But what I see people do is not gather enough leads before they create their lead lookalike audience or their click lookalike audiences. And what happens is it doesn't work, and then they kind of give up and they just think that it doesn't work. So a good rule of thumb for click lookalike audiences is at least 1,000 clicks, probably to be on the safe side around 2,000. And if you're looking to create a lead lookalike audience, you want at least 500 leads before you get going, probably closer to 1,000 to be on the safe side. Okay, let's dive into the next mistake. Okay, the next mistake people make is using detailed targeting expansion before they're ready. Okay, and back at the very start of this video, I spoke about the 60-30-10 rule, and there's a reason behind that. Okay, if you're working so hard to grab your base audience in that 60%, then you don't want to be creating that audience and then clicking the detailed expansion box inside Facebook, because then it's going to start finding people that are outside of what you originally set out for. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I see a lot of people checking that box immediately when they get started, or checking it too early when they're duplicating campaigns and stuff like that. Okay, so really take time to get your stuff dialed in. Okay, work on your offer, work on your ad, your creative, your ad copy. Use curiosity in your ads. Don't try and sell or kind of try and kind of push too hard inside your offer. Don't treat it like a barbecue. All of this, a barbecue conversation, which is a whole nother story, but you really got to work on these things and get stuff dialed in before you start expanding your audience, because as I said before, the 60% is the most important factor. Okay, so please just be wary, slow down and get stuff dialed in before you go crazy spending a lot of money on ads that don't work or haven't got the kind of quality that you need or your client needs. The next mistake, and the final mistake I'm going to talk about today, is not doubling down on placements. All right, so going back to the 60%, 30 and the 10, what you're going to have is when you get your audience targeting correct and you have your 60% and you're getting going, you should kind of select all placements to begin with. All right, you should run your ads And then over time, you're going to start seeing some trends when you look at your data about some placements that are really working well. Okay, and a lot of people don't take time to double down on those placements and start creating campaigns that could be on certain placements only to see if they work well. We've seen really good success with creating 16:9 ratio ads for Facebook Reels and Stories and running them in their own campaign. We actually took that creative off our TikTok ads, put it into Facebook, and they absolutely smashed TikTok. So stuff like that kind of makes sense for you to look at, but make sure that you don't look at it too soon. As I said, slow down, get stuff dialed in, work on your offer and your creative, see what the results are like, and make decisions based on the data that you're seeing, okay? And you might be surprised with those little nuggets that are really going to be really profitable for you. All right, so I really hope you've enjoyed the video today on mistakes people make with their Facebook ads targeting. Hope you've learned something from it. And if you are looking to get into pay-per-lead or performance-based marketing, I've got a little story for you. There's a link below about a guy called Agency L. It's not his real name, but he used to work with retainer clients and he moved to performance-based marketing. It shows exactly how he did it and what that looked like. It's good stuff. You should check it out. As I said, the link's below. Also, if you did like this video, please give us a like or a thumbs up. If you've got any comments or questions, please comment below. And lastly, subscribe to our channel so you'll be the first to hear when there's new videos out. I'll speak to you soon.